Hi, and welcome to Great Getaways. On today's show, we're going to take you across the border to Amherstburg, Ontario, Canada. Located approximately 20 minutes south of Windsor, this town lies right on the Detroit River, directly across from Wyandotte, Michigan. The history of both sides of this heritage river have been intertwined for over 300 years, and we're going to see that history come alive on today's show. We're also going to be visiting the Holiday Beach Conservation Area, big birding area here in Canada, and we're going to find out why this area is known as a winemaker's paradise. We've got a good show coming up, so let's get started.
Production of this program is made possible in part by Superior Log Homes, combining yesterday's authentic methods with today's modern construction techniques. Builders of log homes for over 35 years.
A great place to stop by at the beginning of your trip is the Visitor Center, where friendly staff can offer directions, suggestions of things to see and do, and dining and accommodation options. Since there are so many options, we're going to go back in time and start at the beginning. It is rumored that the great Shawnee Chief Tecumseh made his home at one time or another on Blanc Island in the Detroit River off the coast of Amherstburg. The settlement was purposely located along the banks of the Detroit River because of its strategic military advantage. During the 7-Year War, the British naval forces on the inland waterway struggled with the French for control of North America. With the conclusion of that conflict, the British needed to maintain supply with numerous posts in the interior. The outbreak of hostilities in the 1770s between the American colonies and Great Britain renewed the requirement for a naval presence on the Great Lakes. The original Provincial Marine was an arm of the British military in defense of the border region.
You're with the Provincial Marine reenactment group right now, and what we do is practice living history, where we attempt to master, research, learn the skills of the period way back that we're portraying and demonstrate them to the public. So here you see one of our camp scenes. We have period campground equipment, and we are just doing things that people might have done about 200 years ago.
The Commissariat building, built in the 1830s, is owned by Parks Canada and rented to the Provincial Marine as its headquarters. Group members purchase or make their own period clothing and camping supplies. As the name suggests, the Provincial Marine was very involved with the movement of the troops and supplies along the waterway. The group attempts to relive this era with its replica boat operations. Here the group fires a bow gun from a replica whaleboat using the sailing, rowing, and black powder technology of 200 years ago. Keeping in the same time frame as the Provincial Marine in Amherstburg, our next stop is the historic Gordon House. The Gordon House was built between 1796 and 1798.
It was originally built for a captain Captain William Mills. He was killed in a battle prior to the Battle of Lake Erie, and the home was then left to the Honorable James Gordon, who was a member of Canada's upper legislature and for whom the house is named. The Gordons made some of the more beautiful changes to the house with regard to the balconies that we're standing on right now that overlook the Detroit River and our beautiful Kings Navy Yard Park. Following James Gordon's occupation, it was then occupied for some 61 years by the Mullen family. Mullen family were very well known in Amherstburg for their philanthropy. Following their 61-year occupation, several owners were occupied the house. It even became in the 1960s, an apartment building. The home is now occupied by Project HMS Detroit and the Amherstburg Chamber of Commerce. HMS Detroit was Canada's flagship in the War of 1812, and of course the name came from, prior to the Battle of Lake Erie, the British capturing what we now know as the city of Detroit, then Fort Detroit. King George III commissioned Canada's largest flagship to be built in honor of that victory. HMS Detroit was built here in the Kings Navy Yard Park.
Arriving in Amherstburg about the same time frame as the Gordon House would be the Park House. I say arriving because the home was originally built near the River Rouge near Detroit.
This house has a very interesting history because it wasn't built in Canada. It was actually built in Michigan in the early 1790s. And the people who built it were loyalists, and they were running as a trading post. And when the British left the United States to come to Canada to build their new fort, the loyalists followed them. So this family came along with the soldiers, and as a reward, they were given a piece of land. And one of the conditions of having the land was that they had to have a building on it within a year. And they decided to put their Detroit building on the new lot. And how they did that was they marked every single timber on the outside of the building with Roman numerals that match wherever they touch. Then they dismantled the house, they made it into rafts, and floated it down to Amherstburg, and then reassembled it here in 1780.
Today, the house is run as a living history museum telling the story of Theodore Park and his family.
Wandering around the Park House, you'll find people doing all sorts of chores. Now, the ladies in the parlour, of course, are not expected to do chores, so we're doing ladylike activities. And Amanda is sketching, and that would have been a very ladylike activity. And Ashley is doing a seasonal chore. She's making lavender bundles with the lavender from our garden so that she'll be able to send her linens for the rest of the year.
This site also consists of a British parishioner's cottage, which was built in about 1851, and is also used as a working tin shop. Museums, reenactors, archivists, and even the film industry have used pieces made at Park House for ongoing exhibits and projects. Custom work has been supplied across Canada, the USA, and even England. Visitors to the site may view the tinsmith at work, and reproduction tinware is available for purchase. Fort Malden was the key British defense post during the War of 1812 and later during the Rebellion of 1837. The fort commemorates a period when the destiny of Canada was determined by military action. This riverfront site includes original earthworks and a restored barracks where visitors are invited to try on replica uniforms.
Because every conflict they were engaged in, they won successfully, and organization wasn't responsible from the rebels' perspective.
We came down now to a really interesting site. I'm here with Robert Honor, and Robert is kind of going to show us around this fort, actually, is what it is. And Robert, maybe you ought to explain where we're at and what a fort's doing here.
Okay, well, we're at Fort Malden National Historic Site of Canada. It's a National Historic Site that's operated by Parks Canada, so it's one of many historic sites in national parks across the country that were located on the shores of the Detroit River in Amherstburg, Ontario. It's a beautiful location. And the reason that we're here, of course, is because of this location. The waterway that we're standing along was the main transportation route in pioneer times, and of course, a fort had to be located in a location that could control that waterway. So the earthworks and the bastions and the cannons are set up here so they could fire across the river to stop any traffic from going by. If you come here to visit Fort Malden today, basically we're in about a maybe 10 or 11 acre park that contains the archaeological remains and the remnants of the old fort, as well as a site museum. So you can see how we've sort of uncovered the remains of the old fort. Through the summertime, we are fortunate to hire young people that will reenact the life of the soldiers here. We have both men and women, and so we portray the life of all the people that were here at Fort Malden.
The fort runs special programming from group visits. Special events are staged throughout the year, such as the Military Heritage Days, where reenactors live as soldiers did on site. Visitors are also welcome at Art by the River. This premier art event, staged by the Fort Malden Guild of Arts and Crafts, takes place on the picturesque grounds of Fort Malden, right alongside the Detroit River. Fort Malden was burned when the British retreated in 1813. When tensions flared in 1837, the British rebuilt the fort. At this time, there was also a company black militia associated with the fort. Among them was Josiah Henson, the man upon whose autobiography Harriet Beecher Stowe based her famous character, Uncle Tom, in her controversial novel, Uncle Tom's Cabin. The story of the black community in Amherstburg and Canada as a whole is brilliantly told at the North American Black Historical Museum.
Black families have been in Amherstburg since the mid-1700s. One of the first group of black people to be brought to Amherstburg were slaves. About 60 in the 1780s after the Battle of Blue Lakes by a British hero by the name of Matthew Elliott. We had plantations right here in the Amherstburg area. The church we're standing in, the Nazarene African Methodist Episcopal Church, was built in 1848 by former refugee slaves and free blacks who came to this area to gain true freedom. The church is of rubble stone construction. It's restored to the 1888 time frame, and it is the first National Historic Site dedicated to black history in the history of this country, happening in 1999. It's used as a living exhibit. We have weddings, baptisms, workshops, and it is one of 3 buildings on the museum complex. The North American Black Historical Museum has been in operation since 1975. We have a main exhibit that is being stylized or refurbished to deal with the 400th anniversary of black people coming to Canadian shores. A man by the name of Matthew da Costa, who was a navigator of Portuguese descent, brought Samuel de Champlain to Canada 400 years ago, 1604. We're very proud of that heritage. Our museum exhibits black heritage from African origins to present day, with a focus on the Underground Railroad, because that movement, the Underground Railroad movement, was the most long-lived, most successful freedom movement in all of history. We have the Taylor Log Cabin, which we're also restoring, which dates back to the War of 1812. It was a shed at Fort Malden, the British installation here in Amherstburg. And in 1848, it was totally dismantled and moved to its present site and occupied by a French family. In 1866, a former slave and veteran of the Civil War, Mr. George Taylor, moved here to Amherstburg with his family and purchased the cabin, ergo the Taylor Log Cabin. We had over 80 years of people from all walks of life, men, women, children, Jews, Gentiles, assisting people like me, my ancestors, to come here to freedom. This is kingdom. This is freedom land.
From the story of the Underground Railroad to the very real Michigan Central Railroad, our travels take us to the Gibson Gallery. If this station looks familiar, you're not mistaken. Similar stations can be found in Three Oaks and Columbiaville, Michigan. The station was originally opened in 1896, but has served the Amherstburg community as the home of the Fort Malden Guild of Arts and Crafts since 1969. A designated historic site, the station, now the Gibson Gallery, features works from the permanent collection of the Art Gallery of Windsor. Stitchery exhibits and special events are featured throughout the year. As the history of Amherstburg dates back more than 3 centuries, the keepers of the local history at the Marsh Collection seem like newcomers. The collection was established with the Marsh family's valuable library of local history books, photographs, and copies of the Echo. Amherstburg's local paper, the Echo, has been continuously operated since 1874.
The Marsh Collection started in this building in 1994 after the death of John and Helen Marsh, who were a brother and sister whose family operated the Amherstburg Echo across the street for almost 80 years. And it's still going. Yeah. And they were really keen on this community. They just loved Amherstburg. And John especially was a pack rat of sorts. And he saved everything he could possibly get, every kind of a book or photograph on local history. So we actually started with a very small area of books, and we've added to it since then. Some of the books are local history here and the marine history. He was an avid marine buff. Okay. So this is how we got started. And we had half of this facility, and we've grown since then. Most people come in to look up their family histories. So we have quite a variety here of early church records, census records, and that sort of thing. And we've collected these since we started the facility. Some were in my own home. We have filing cabinets loaded back here with about 3,000 photographs and newspaper clippings. The main part of our collection, I would say, is the Amherstburg Echo, which started in 1874. And we have every microfilm of every year from then until now.
Currently, the collection is featuring a wooden sculpture by the late Kermit Hawkins. If the name sounds familiar, you're right on track. Mr. Hawkins was the sculptor of the original Kermit the Frog. The sculpture was a memorial given to Canada by the United States in 1963 to commemorate the 150 years of peace since the Battle of Lake Erie. Amherstburg has a lot more to offer the visitor than just history, though, as we'll find out in our next stop at the Holiday Beach Conservation Area.
Acre park, and it's really quite beautiful. We have natural campsites, about 90 natural campsites, a beautiful beach for people to swim at. We've got nature trails that wind throughout the park. And what's particularly special about Holiday Beach Conservation Area is that in the year 2000, it was dedicated by Bird Studies Canada as an important bird area of global significance. So that's really quite special and a fairly unique designation in Canada. One of the main reasons for that designation is the hawk migration that happens in the month of September. Hundreds of thousands of raptors migrate over this area in the fall, and people come from all over the world really to witness what we call the air spectacular. What's really special about here in what we call Canada's South Coast is that you'll find native species that you can't find anywhere else in this country. They're really unique to the area, things that you would more likely find in the southern United States. It's called Carolinian Canada, the forest that we have here. We have very special wildlife. Again, the birding is just spectacular, not only in the fall but also in the spring. In the fall, as well as the raptor migration, you can find monarch butterflies migrating, dragonflies migrating, and we have a festival really that surrounds those activities. We call it the Festival of Hawks, and it runs for the 3 weekends in September following Labor Day.
Another great camping option, especially if you have children, is Jellystone Park. Themed after the lovable Hanna-Barbera cartoon Yogi Bear, Jellystone offers campsites for RVs, tents, and even cabin rentals. Activities for the whole family include mini golf, hay rides, swimming, and movies. Park owners also plan special events throughout the season. If you want something a bit more substantial than just nylon protecting you from the elements, you may want to try Duffy's Motor Inn where we stayed. Plenty of rooms with river views along with a full-service restaurant will help make your stay enjoyable. Duffy's also accept guests via the river. Those with cabin fever can dock at Duffy's private marina and still enjoy the inn and restaurant. Another accommodation option which really allows visitors to get to know the locals are the bed and breakfasts. Amherstburg features a number of really lovely B&Bs such as Allen's, Honors, Mesman's Manor, and the Bondi House. Some are historic homes, some feature beautiful lake views, some have lovely gardens, but all feature very gracious hosts. You definitely want to stay overnight to be able to take in the wineries of Lake Erie's North Shore. History shows this region to be the oldest commercial grape-growing area in the country. Geographically, it's as far south as Northern California's Napa Valley and Rome, Italy. We had a chance to visit with a number of local wine masters and really got a feeling for the pride of craftsmanship each has. On the edge of Amherstburg is the area's largest winery, Colio Estate Wines. The winery produces over 200,000 cases of wine, which are shipped all over the globe.
But we started this winery in 1980. The first winery opened door in this area in Essex County, and after Prohibition. And now we are in the barrel room, where you can see many barrels here. It's over 450 barrels, where we are aging, or the most is our red wine.
And how long will these actually age in these barrels now?
Here we age from 8 to 12 months on average. Depends if are new barrels or used barrels.
Okay. Now, in the operation that you have here, it is also retail, so people can come in and buy wine?
Sure. They can come in, they can have tours, visit the barrel room, and they can have, they can learn about how making wine, and see all our facility and taste the wine at the
Another award-winning winery is the Angeles Estate Winery.
This is our 1997 vintage ice wine. We won the trophy for best ice wine in Ontario 2 years in a row. And then 96, 97, 98 was what we call our hat trick. We got 3 gold medals in a row. And then 99 was 2 silver medals, and the 2000 was ready now.
Now, ice wine. What's the difference between ice and a regular wine?
Ice wine is a very sweet dessert wine made with frozen grapes. The grapes are left on the vine to freeze. They must freeze on the vine by law to be able to call ice wine. And the temperature must be -8 Celsius or colder. Usually -9, -10 is what we aim for. And that's about Christmas or January. And most of the time it's 3 o'clock in the morning. The grapes have to be picked, frozen, they have to be pressed frozen.
So it all has to take place fast?
Yes, the water content inside the berry, which is usually about 80%, separates from the fructose and sugar and turns into a solid called ice. The grapes are put into the press and slowly squeezed whole. The water can't flow, it's a solid, but the sugar portion is still liquid. So you're extracting only that 20%, which gives you yields of about 150 liters a ton compared to normal yields of about 750 a ton. The rest is water, and that's discarded. And the resultant juice is anywhere from 38 to 40 grams. Got a bronze, silver, and a gold. No. And as it aged, bronze, silver.
Oh, is that right?
98 vintage. It's aged in French oak barrels for 12 months.
Now, when you do something like this, what are you looking for?
Well, you're releasing what they call the bouquet, or ethers of the wine, so you can smell it better.
Okay.
By swishing around there, right? And you want to hold it by the stem.
By the stem, okay.
That way the heat from your hand doesn't warm up.
Oh, doesn't affect it, okay.
Now smell it. And this.
Nice taste.
Now, you tasted it regular. And once you put a little bit of wine on the inside of your teeth, and draw air into it, so you roll it over, and then go with the left of your tongue, the right of your tongue, and then swallow it. You'll taste it amplified about 10 times. And you really taste it. Takes a little bit of practice. You want to draw some air. That's it. Just draw some air.
Oh, wow. That makes a big difference.
Yes.
Excellent. Joining these established wineries are newcomers Sanson Estate Winery and Erie Shore Vineyard. Tours and tasting are offered at all wineries, with each one featuring different styles distinct to each winemaster. The region will be expanding over the next few years with the addition of Viewpoint Winery, along with others still in the development phase.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's show. Surprisingly, Amherstburg is only a short distance for many of our viewers from southern Michigan and northern Ohio. Of course, it's a good stop for anybody with its variety of accommodations, its unique history, and plenty of beaches and parks. And let's not forget the wineries because they are a great place to tour. All in all, Amherstburg has something for everyone to do. A free brochure is available that includes everything you need to know about the Amherstburg area when you call 1-866-270-7111. Or you can go to our website at greatgetaways.tv for a link to Amherstburg, Ontario. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Production of this program is made possible in part by Superior Log Homes, combining yesterday's authentic methods with today's modern construction.